Hello, hello, everyone. We are live. Welcome to the Authenticity Panel. I'm AD Diggs. A little bit behind me, I was on Love and Hip Hop. Now I have dedicated my platform to getting in front of the LGBT and any kind of justice, and that's my purpose. I have my niece and nephew with me. I have Marley right here, and this is Aaron. All right. So what we're here to do today, which I'm super excited to, is we're going to have a space for encouragement and acceptance of freedom. And I think one important thing is authenticity, right? Being yourself and feeling comfortable in your skin. And so today I have some amazing people that are going to join me shortly here. And I wish that back when I was younger, that I would have had a platform like this that I could have went to if when I was feeling like I didn't know how to come out. And most importantly, I'm really excited that I'm able to do this. And so some of my background, and I think it's important to talk about our past when we're discussing who we are now and how comfortable I am and how I got here. And most importantly, when I was a child, I've always dressed very masculine. I was considered the tomboy, right, for labels purposes. And I was bullied as a child. I wasn't accepted with the other kids. I loved playing with the boys. I really enjoyed making sure that I really enjoyed, playing with the boys, doing stuff that like the little girls weren't doing. So I felt that, it was important that, I was being myself. But when I was being bullied, it was really difficult for me as a child to kind of navigate through that. And I didn't have an outlet to where I was able to go and have these resources. And thank God, when I came out to my mother, that she was really supportive. And she told me that she'll love me no matter what. And it really gave me the confidence to be who I am today, living in my authentic self and in my truth. But I wish that as a child, I would have had some representation of what it was to be a lesbian woman and how it was going to be for me. And I had none of that. And so I'm really happy on behalf of the LA Sparks that they've provided this platform for us. And I'm really glad that they reached out to me so that I'm able to share this story with you, share the purpose with you guys. We have some really amazing panelists today that they're going to tell you about resources. We have Chelsea on here. She's going to tell you about her story, how she came to be. So I'm really excited about this. Without further ado, let's introduce some of the panelists here. Right now, we have Chelsea from the LA Sparks. I have Mel from the LGBTQ in Los Angeles. And I also have Anthony on for the Covenant House. Welcome, everyone. Hello.
Hello.
And Mel, you guys are muted. If you guys can unmute, I appreciate you. Hello. I'm really excited about this. I'm sure you guys are as well. Being able to have a platform like this, to be able to really share with the youth and have some kind of conversation around how it feels to come out, how it feels to be in this world, and provide the resources that you guys have. And I'm really happy that you guys have, dedicated your lives to this. I think it's super important. So I think it's also important to know kind of your backstory. And if Chelsea, I heard you just recently got married to a woman, a beautiful woman. So I'm super excited. And I've heard a little bit about your backstory and how it's a little up and down. And now you're married to a woman and you're living your authentic truth. So I'm really super excited. So if you want to, without further ado, take it away.
Yeah, so hello everyone. I am Chelsea Graham, a guard for the LA Sparks. I'm going into my 6th year in the WNBA. So growing up, it was kind of not really talked about too much in my household. Like I knew, you know, the kind of the minimum, but just experiences going outside of that with high school, during college, like really exploring and understanding, what certain things meant or what certain terminology meant. And it really wasn't until about college and the beginning of like my pro career, I was just like, okay, I'm getting comfortable and understanding who I am as a person, um, trying to explore, my sexuality and how I felt about certain things that were said or certain things in my childhood, or just exploring how to, kind of use my platform to explain that to other people. But I met now my wife back in 20, she's gonna kill me if I get this wrong, but back in back in about 2011, 2012, and we were friends for a while, and we recently got married. But she was the one that's really allowed me to be comfortable in my own skin and actually, voice an opinion about it. And I agree with you, AD, like growing up to be able to see people use their platform and understand and it really explain like, hey, it's okay, open doors, really explain like it's okay to be your authentic self. And if people don't accept it, that's on them. Um, so that was kind of my growing up and how I got here today. And I'm excited to be on this panel and just, have a safe space to be able to have conversations like this. And for people that's listening to it, just if you leave here with just like an ounce of like, ounce of something, is like being okay. And, there's people out here and resources out there to, for you to be your authentic self. So I'm excited to continue the conversation.
Well, I appreciate you sharing your story. I think it's admirable, right? And it's really difficult sometimes as a child to feel like we're being validated or accepted. And as we become adults, we realize we don't need the validation anymore, right? We don't need anyone to tell us that it's okay to live in our authentic selves. But as children, we really need that. And I think parents out there need to really understand what it feels to support a child through their process and who they're going to become. And it allows them to be really amazing humans in the world. So I appreciate hearing that story. It takes a lot.
So I would totally agree. And the validation, like you're straying away from, having to validate, like it's something wrong with it. Like validation is like, no, it's okay. But like it's just another person, it's just another part of who that person is. So that's really something that I really kind of had the conversations about.
Well, I really appreciate you sharing. Super excited. David just joined us. He's part of the Black Justice Coalition, National Black Justice Coalition, excuse me. So David has joined us. Welcome, David. Thank you.
Hey, thank you for having me.
No worries, man. I'm super excited about this and super excited about these conversations that we're going to have, the amazing things that you do. I can't wait to hear what you do for us out there in that community right now. Mel, I know you're on with us. Is Mel still here? Hey, you're muted, Mel.
Yeah, I'm unmuted now.
Hi, Mel. Thank you so much for being a part of this. The work that you do with the LA LGBTQ. I'm super excited to hear your story, how you came about doing this for us and representing and everything you do and your time and efforts that you put in. So you can take it away. Tell us your story. Tell us a little bit about the center.
So, hey, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to be on this panel. I'm super excited about it because I think it's just not talked about enough. And so I think this is a great way to start. And so, again, I'm Mel. I am born and raised from Compton, California. And I've been with the center at the LGBT Center maybe about 8 years now. And so I pretty much got here because I am LGBT. And so I pretty much always wanted to work in this field with trying to help youth either come out or find a family or get linkage to resources. Because I just remember when I was in high school, I didn't have anything like that. I am a former foster youth, and so I didn't have a support system. I didn't have a family to go to. And a lot of my friends didn't even understand what LGBT was at that time. And so it was really hard for me coming out. And I stayed in the closet until I got into college. It wasn't until I got in college and got connected back into my immediate family that I felt more comfortable. But growing up, I was bullied. I was from school to school all the time, just because I was not comfortable in my own skin. And so, yeah, I'm just excited to be here. At the center, we do help out homeless youth. And so right now I'm currently helping out DCFS and probation youth because that is my passion. Like I said, I am a former foster youth. And I was always one of those youth that kind of messed up sometimes. But I was like, also, when I grew up, I was like, okay, these youth messed up, but what happened? What can we do to help them? And so that's why I wanted to put back into the community. And that's where I'm here at the LGBT Center, just trying to help out youth that was just like me, trying to figure it out.
That's beautiful. I appreciate you sharing the story. I love your backstory. I think that's important. I think that's what leads us into what our purpose is and why. Similar to me, I think most of us, the era that we grew up in, there was no representation of us, right? No strength, no one to look up to. We didn't know how to come out. So kids Absolutely. Even were bullying us because there was nothing familiar for them to say, well, you're cool because you're this, right?
Right.
We're super cool, right? You can't tell us anything. We're cool. So and we know we're cool. And now we want to give back. And I appreciate everything you're doing, Mel. I think that's beautiful that you're dedicating your life to that, because it's now you understand why it's so important to have that situation, these resources for us as, growing up.
Absolutely. I just kind of wanted to give back to the community because I remember not having a voice, and I just want to be able to give youth that voice.
I think it's beautiful. Thank you so much, Mel. All right, Anthony from the Covenant House. I know you're over there doing some amazing things. I've read your backstory. I think it's amazing. It's a sad situation how many homeless youth we do have out there. And you dedicated your life to this, and I appreciate it so much. And I would love to hear your story, how you even got here. Because dedicating, it's just a beautiful thing, because we didn't have this, this wasn't, they were literally on the streets, and now they're having places and resources to go when even a parent doesn't accept their own kid, it breaks my heart to hear that. Because it's a child, at the end of the day. So take it away, Anthony. Thank you so much for being here.
No, thank you for having us. My name is Anthon Connelly, and I'm joined by superheroes in the community. I couldn't have done this without her. She's been at the Covenant House for 30 years, so she has encountered so many young people through the streets of Hollywood. But my story goes back to, I'm coming on the opposite end. Hopefully the community, the LGBTQ community, calls me an ally. I didn't really encounter anything until college, until, some of my best friends started coming out and they're being authentic. And I was there to support them. And luckily I was raised by wonderful parents to make me accept everybody. So during my journey in college, just trying to figure out what I want to do in life by helping people, being part of the student government, advocating for different issues. I always knew I wanted to help. I thought I wanted to be a doctor. That was the only thing I knew. A doctor or a lawyer, police officer, whatever it may be that you hear, a firefighter. My dad's a firefighter. So those things of helping people. But I didn't realize how important social services. So luckily, my path took me all kinds of ways. I was in retail, I'm managing bands, but somehow, some way, I ended up here at the Covenant House, and it's been truly a blessing. Here at the Covenant House, we help youth between the ages of 18 to 24. We have 3 different programs to help the youth. You can stay here up to 30 days, and you can be here up to 3 or 4 years, as long as you're under the age of 25. But even still, we work with you to make sure you get housing. About 1/3 of the homeless youth in California are here in California. So that's important to know. And about LGBTQ, about 40% of our youth here are LGBTQ. So it's a really important issue, and it's something we identify and that we really want to help and really make a difference in. And Ms. Lon, I don't know if you wanted to share something real quick.
Hi. Well, I've been here that long, and we've worked with a lot of LB residents, and I will say that we've never treated them any differently. We love all. We have groups to support our LGBTQ community. We've been doing that. And then as I'm listening to you guys, I'm going all the way back to the 60s and 70s when it used to break my heart at how people who identified differently were treated, was killed. So I've been in the fight for this for since the 60s and the 70s, and I will continue to be in this fight with you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Thank you so much for that. I think one of the most important things that you guys have said, like how far we've come, right? You just told us that, you know, we weren't accepted. The LGBTQ was not accepted, right? And they were being murdered. And we've gotten to a place where now there's some acceptance, right? There's a lot of justice happening. There's laws being passed. You know, it was so interesting that I just recently read about when they passed the law that you can't fire an LGBTQ, right?
Sure.
Like that blows my mind to think that your sexuality speaks for who you are as a person and your character, right? That should never be the case. If I'm a hard worker, it doesn't matter who I lay down with and who I love, it should not, right? But we're getting there. And this kind of type of conversation, this panel is super important. Your guys' resources and the work that you guys do in the community is so important to our progression and where we're going, because the more support we have in this, the stronger we become and the more things that we can break through.
Yes.
I appreciate you guys dedicating your time to that. And it's really sad to hear that 40% of our children out there and our youth are in the LGBTQ, right? That's really sad, because that tells me that there's a lot of parents out there that actually need to be on this panel and listening to these stories and really educate themselves around what it means and what it would feel like to be supported as a child, right? Your sexuality should never speak for who you are. Your sexuality is just part of what you decide, who you decide to love. We should all be loving each other at that level. So that, without further ado, that actually was a great segue into David, that's doing some really amazing things to protect the LGBT community, especially in the Black community. We really appreciate all the work you're doing. I think it's important. It's this time right now, I think it's so important. I just recently I walked in a march for the All Black Lives Matter. And I think it's important that we're having the conversation that all Black lives matter, and especially in our trans and our LGBTQ communities there. So David, without further ado, I would love to hear your story. Hey, I read up on you and I'm super impressed. You were on the Obama administrative. You have done some really amazing things, and I can't wait to hear all about it.
I appreciate that, AD, and I'm thankful for the ways that you show up in the world as an example of the diversity that always has existed in our community, right? I am a Black boy from Inglewood, California. I shared when I got the invitation that I walked past, right, the home of the Lake Show, and remember when the Sparks was created. And the sad reality is that racism and white supremacy and anti-Blackness work in ways that don't allow us to exist in our beautiful diversity. That is why, in spite of all that the Sparks has done, that folks like Lisa Leslie has done, if you ask most kids to name a basketball player, 99.9% of the time they're going to describe that one that has been assigned male at birth, right? And so it's really important for me, again, as a Black boy from Inglewood, California, who's had the opportunity to do a lot of things that people tell you that if you do them, you will feel safe, you will be protected, you will have some form of privilege. And the reality is that it is all a lie, right? I know for a fact that if I walk outside in these COVID streets to protest, to agitate, to shop, to do the things that are required to live, that a police officer is not going to read my bio when he's looking at my 6'5" Black body, right? There's also the additional burden that I have being same gender loving. So I like to complicate things and acknowledge that even when we talk about the LGBTQ community or the movement, most often people are thinking about things that benefit white people. Because of the way that, again, race works. When we talk about Black folks, people assume that we're all heterosexual or heteronormative. And whenever we talk about queer things, people assume that all those people are white. And so the organization I lead, the National Black Justice Coalition, exists to acknowledge the importance of intersectionality, to recognize that still today, while we are demanding for people to acknowledge that Black lives matter, just this weekend, we lost a 17-year-old Black trans girl who was murdered in Arkansas. Right, Tony McDade, a Black trans man, was murdered by the police department of Tallahassee less than a week after George Floyd was murdered. And this is important because there are a lot of people who are saying the names of George Floyd, and they should. There are fewer people saying the name of Breonna Taylor, right, the Black woman who was murdered in Kentucky. And we should say her name too, but we also should say the names of our Black, queer, trans, and non-binary brothers and sisters. I know that there are some adults, some parents, some caring and concerned adults who are watching. I really want to underscore some of the points that have been made by the wonderful people doing work on behalf of our community. So many people tend to be concerned about safety, If you ask most parents what they're concerned about when they have a child who is or identifies as a member of our community or just doesn't identify as strictly heterosexual, which the vast majority of kids today identify as, safety is their primary concern. And to be clear, as people who are racial, ethnic, and sexual minorities, we all have to be concerned about our safety. That is why it is important to pass policies and laws like the Title VII SCOTUS decision that you just mentioned, AD. That happened 2 weeks ago. That makes it now illegal for individuals to be fired based on actual or perceived sexual identity, gender orientation, or expression. But the sad reality is that that law doesn't mean anything if you can't be hired, or if you are a Black trans woman and the average life expectancy for you is no more than 35 years of age. And so I'm simply trying to say, to the point that Ms. Lowe, I think, made, which is that a lot of people assume that the fights of the civil rights era were won and that they're over. And there's still so much more work to be done to ensure that folks who are not only racial or ethnic minorities, people who are Black, Afro-Latinx, Latinx, Black and brown, however you define yourself, and who are also a sexual minority, so LGBTQIA, or I use the term same gender loving, which was actually created by another Black man from Inglewood, California named Cleo Monago. The work is to ensure that we can all be safe. We don't have to deal with bias, discrimination, or harm that comes often as a result of ignorance and privilege.
David, you are an amazing human being, and I appreciate everything you're doing, because what you stated, and we're still fighting, right? I live smack in the dead of Hollywood, and I tell you, I've been a part of every single march that was happening. I was emotional. I was overwhelmed. I come from my background. I have my niece and nephew, obviously biracial. I was raised with a Black father my whole life.
Y'all are beautiful.
Thank you. I was raised with a Black father my entire life. So I didn't know, as far as like who I was. I'm Puerto Rican. So yeah, I represent on the brown side of things. And it's so important. My friends and family, this is our fight. This is everybody's fight, right? This is a fight for all of us to get involved. And I appreciate the LA Sparks for knowing that this panel needs to be put together and that this conversation needs to happen and that the mothers and the youth need to hear this. And the work that you're doing behind the scenes is so important because, like you said, yeah, we passed the law, but what does it take for us to now get hired? How do you not see me as a lesbian, masculine identified woman, and you see me as my character and you know that I'm gonna be a hard worker, right?
Yeah.
And that's the struggle. My resume is stacked, but if you don't care to know who I am, you won't hire me, right? And so that's where the struggle becomes, and that's where the fight is, right? So how do we get accepted in society and become authentic, and you accept me and you love me for that? And I love that you say same love, right? Same sex love.
Same gender loving.
I think that is perfect because I'm not really into the labels. I don't like the whole label thing. I also want to be accepted, and I don't want to feel like I'm in a box all the time with people putting me there. I love who I love, and that shouldn't matter, right? That's not our main representation of who we are.
Yeah, and the reality too is also, let me say two things to this. This is again why I mean it, AD, like the work that you do existing in the world publicly, loving as you love, fighting as passionately as you fight, having the relationships that make you whole, including with your family, is incredibly important because too often people don't see us. Even the way that we have this conversation and we talk about like Black or white, it erases the reality that there are Puerto Rican people in the world, that there are Afro-Puerto Rican people in the world, or Afro-Caribbean people in the world, right? And that diversity is incredibly important. Too often, when we think about things associated with, again, the queer movement, so many of us are erased. When people think about gay in the same way that I talked about basketball before, most people think about what it means to be gay. They're thinking of a gay white man, right? Especially in Hollywood, that means he got a whole lot of power. He has a whole lot of representation. He can see himself when he turns on the TV. And we all have to appreciate in this moment when people are literally willing to risk their lives, to protest. And not just Black folks, not just Black queer folks, not just queer folks, not just people with disabilities, but everybody, that unless and until all of us are free, none of us are free. That is why representation matters. That's why we partnered with Samson Kendrick and signed on to a list of demands that were issued to Hollywood so that they could divest from the racist, negative stereotypes and stories that they share that make it okay for cops to watch somebody die like George Floyd did and think that they're going to be protected, or to think that only Black trans women only exist to engage in sex work or be murdered, or that you as a masculine lesbian identified woman don't exist in the world, and that all of us are deserving of love. That is why I like the term same gender loving, because it complicates this. I'm not gay as a white male political identifier. I am equally proud to be a Black man as I am to be same gender loving. And at the core of all of that is that, like, I want to be acknowledged and loved for who I am, not based on how somebody else defines me, not based on how stereotypes might have warped the way that you expect other people to show up in the world, but based on who I am and whose I am. And for me, that's what all of this work is about.
And that's exactly it. I just wanted to be accepted for who I am. I want to be loved for who I am. And I think the conversation throughout each panelist has been the same, right? We're giving resources. We're saying we just want to be accepted. We just want to experience love, but we want to do it within a respectful way, right? And then you're coming behind it and say, if you don't do it, I'm going to make sure you do it, right? You're like the muscle behind what we need, right? We need that strong power, because we can march all day, but it's behind the scenes that a lot of things happen. And we need the strong political figures. We need the people like me that have the platforms to get in front of this and say this matters. We're losing people left and right. I just walked. We're chanting these names that have been murdered for injustice, or because of who they love. It blows my mind that
how they show up in the world. How old are you two?
I'm 13. I'm about to turn 14 in August.
I'm 12.
13, 14. How old are you?
12.
12, right? I think about this, right? Like, both of them are having now to learn the names of Black folks who have been murdered publicly.
Yes.
They're having to spend time thinking about why racism exists, what anti-Blackness means, how people get promoted to positions that they don't deserve, like the current occupant of the Oval Office. Many kids their age, maybe even them, are risking their lives to protest, to demand change that they might have accepted might not come in their lifetime, and it is just unfair. I don't think, did y'all ask to be born? Did y'all say y'all wanted in on this? No, right? Kids don't ask to be born. It is our responsibility as adults, especially parents, are individuals who are charged to care and love on babies who are beautiful and as brilliant as they clearly are, to get this right so that they have a chance to dream and play and experience the kind of joy that too often Black, brown, religious, ethnic minorities, kids with disabilities, kids who are seen as being queer never get the chance to have because of these socially constructed problems that adults have created.
I think that's beautiful. I think it's always a tough thing when you have to sit down with a 13-year-old and have the conversation about you being a Black man, and that you can't do certain things when you're with your other friends and they're not Black, right? You have to have the conversation with them so that he doesn't lose his life. And that's a tough conversation to have with someone that you love. And it's unfortunate, but it's the conversation you have to have at this time in this space. But what I'm doing right now is so important so they don't have to worry about that growing up. And they get to this age, they won't have to fight, because I'm going to make sure I fight. And that's why when the LA Sparks reached out to me and they told me it was a no-brainer for me to be a part of this, and the people that were going to be on it, the panelists, I really appreciate you guys, because this conversation is so important. Even if it's tough and you don't want to hear it, right? You got to hear this. This conversation is important to hear, and you got to know that we're going to be here to support you. We're here, and we're going to make sure that you don't have to struggle, and that, someone like Anthony is going to provide a place. If your mother, you come out and you want to live your truth, we're going to provide, a living space for you. And we're going to make sure that you're not on the streets, and we're going to get you back, and we're going to move you into society. And then I really love Chelsea, because you're an LA Sparks player, right? These kids are looking at you as, I want to be this. We didn't have that growing up. We didn't have that projection of who I wanted to be. And now we have somebody that's openly saying, hey, I love the same gender, and this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to represent this, and I'm going to speak about it, and I'm not afraid to speak about it. And Mel, like, the work that you have to do, that is incredible. I'm centered out here in LA, so I get it. I understand how important that center is for everyone, not just the youth, but everybody. Because even at an adult level, we still struggle with acceptance. We still struggle with validation, because nowhere in our lives has somebody said it was okay, or we're not seeing anyone on TV being okay with being their authentic self. So it's very difficult, to feel comfortable in that. I want to open up the conversation a little bit, and whoever's willing to talk, I think it's important. It's segueing there, but the comfort level versus difficulty for youth in coming out. So if anybody wants to take it over, just unmute you and, have the discussion around it. But I think it's comfort level versus difficulty for youth in coming out.
So can I offer up an idea? I know a lot of people like the term coming out, and I hate it. One is really white. Two, it hides the way that heteronormative privilege or heterosexual privilege operates to keep people oppressed. Consider the fact that heterosexual people never have to come out.
Right.
Have you ever heard a straight person have to recite on demand when they realize or came into their sexual identity? Often, they can't tell you that they realize that they come into their sexual identity because that's how privilege works. And so what I talk about is what was exampled by Lil Nas X. Lil Nas X dropped albums on albums, was racking up trophies and awards, was living his best life. And then on a particular day said, for those who haven't been paying attention, if you didn't listen to the music, if you didn't pay attention to the art, if you didn't take the chance to get to know me, I'm going to invite you in and share this part of myself with you. And so the term that we use in the campaign that we have at National Black Justice Coalition is around inviting in. Because what it does is disrupt this idea that on a certain day, every October, there's National Coming Out Day. And it's a day where straight people stand with their arms folded like, tell me when you knew you were weird. It disrupts that and says, if you do right what Anthony and Miss Lon, is it Miss Lon? I want to get it right. Miss Lon have said, right, which is that I will be compassionate. I will learn the letters of the acronym, even though they continue to change and y'all keep adding them. I'm a find ways to understand your experience, even though it is foreign from mine. Right? I'm going to do the things that we all do when we get to know people, with the hope that you will share information that I'm not entitled to. Right? Like Mel found love. What we should all be concerned about is that she found love. If she decides to invite us in and tell us more about who she found love with and how they experienced love together, then that's her business. But too often, this idea of coming out and people's fascination with us and really with how we have sex is often not about if we're loved. It's really often about how we have sex or how we go to the bathroom. It's about power. And I want us to have this conversation being clear about how power works and to offer up a new term that might shift the way that power tends to not exist when we have this conversation as Black queer folks.
All right. You couldn't have said that any better, David. Like I stated, I'm not here for the labels. I think society has given us a lot of things that we didn't necessarily want, you know? And I always say this, I always say I'm like the straightest gay person, right? Because when I say that, it's because I want to be normal, right? I don't think my sexuality should matter. I don't want to tell you when you meet me, you see me, right? I'm masculine identified, but that shouldn't matter, right? My next sentence, you're now learning who I am as a character and who I am as a person. You're no longer thinking about what I'm doing sexually. And that's what I want to remove from those thoughts. And I think that's perfect, David, having that conversation. I think the words, us changing our own verbiage and how we speak about ourselves is so important and so empowering. And I never liked the word coming out, for lack of better words, because it wasn't about coming out for me. It was about speaking my truth, me being authentic and saying, Mom, listen, I am attracted to the same sex. And are you going to still love me? That's really what it felt like, you know, like, are you going to still accept me? And thank God she did, but a lot of kids don't have that conversation and it's safe. To tell you've experienced some of that throughout your childhood. And so I think it's important that we're having these conversations so we can change the verbiage and the youth and the parents that are on this listening understand that changing that verbiage is so important for empowerment for each other. So thank you so much.
And AD, along those lines about how do we support that, I think it's a reflection within our agencies and the businesses that we run. We're talking about the protests and the march. Hopefully all these people are marching these people into jobs and into their careers to get some kind of equity within their businesses. So when you come to the Covenant House, where hopefully our staff and our young people are a reflection of what you are, so we can celebrate you. Like we said, we don't say you're coming out, but you should feel that you're celebrated as soon as you step on this campus, from the flags that we have, from the people that you see. Like Ms. Lon mentioned earlier, we have groups that support you. So if you want to be in those safe spaces, we have it here. So we don't have to verbalize it as much as we can just portray that here on campus. I think that's really key thing that we do here at the Covenant House.
That's beautiful, Anthony, because it's all about feeling some normalcy. Like, we're not separating it because you come here, you're going to be segregated in this situation. And we have to get away from that, of segregating ourselves in the community and being able to be accepted and it feels equal. And we're on the same playing field. And that's what we're fighting for, to be on the same playing field. If not, we get the opportunities that we deserve as humans, right? So I want to talk a little bit about it. Maybe Chelsea, you can talk about this because, you know, your season has been put on hold because of the pandemic, right? And then we just went into now we're fighting for Black Lives Matter. We've just seen another Black man murdered. We've seen a Black woman murdered, right? And then we're in Pride Month. And so when I was marching for the All Black Lives Matter, I saw a sign that was so beautiful, right? It said Pride wasn't canceled. We just got back to our roots. And I thought that was the most beautiful thing I could see through that whole march. That was like such a space for me. And so I want everybody out there to know it hasn't been canceled. We're still going and we're going to still fight. The pandemic can keep us as separated as possible. We're going to find ways to get back together and have this conversation. And we're not going to let them shut us down. And so, Chelsea, how has it been, using your platform and your voice, not having the same resources, right? You're not on a basketball court. You're not interacting with people. So what have you been doing out there to really keep the conversation going outside of, us getting on this panel?
Yeah, I think one of the things that, we discuss as a team and throughout the league is that, we're battling so many fights, us as a league. And one of the things that we talked about is that we're the majority in the minority world. And I know one of my teammates always says that, and it's like the one that kind of gets left behind a lot of the time, like David had said, was the Black woman. And so we're fighting that fight as well. And then you, on top of that, you add in sexuality and who you love. And that's been kind of the topic of conversation, along with, with COVID and having a season. It's like, even if we do have a season, like, what does it look like to share how we feel about social injustices? And like, how do we explain that? And how do we keep these conversations going no matter where we're at, if we're in a bubble or if we're in this state or in this state? So that's kind of been the topic of discussion, is like, how do we keep our platform live? So like certain times we're not able to go silent, or they're still seeing us out there. And, I think about me as a young kid, to see a Black woman up there saying like, hey, this is me, I don't care, go with it. And just being able to be that type of person now, doing a full like 180 and being able to share my opinions and being on panels like this and have just offer, discussions. And I'm gonna be me, I'm gonna be authentic, I'm gonna love who I love. So just offering that support to people who, haven't been able to do that thus far.
I appreciate that. I think that's super important to use our platforms properly, right? And being able to have a place. I know for me, when I was going to be on TV, that was one of the biggest things I thought about, was not just these two right here, right? Because they're going to be watching me. And it was super important that they saw some type of representation of someone they love that was acting right. And then the second part was, I felt like I had a ton of pressure around my community and representing who I was and who I was going to be on TV, because time and time again, we see misrepresentation of us and who we are, right? They want to box us in and make us seem, in one way only. And I'm not here for it, and I won't be here for it ever. And I will never allow that to happen to me. And that's why after TV, what's important is what I'm doing is the most important thing. Like these panelists and having the conversation. And I get in front of as many people as I can, whether it's 2 or 3 people, I'm having the conversation because I know they're watching. And I know that I'm representing an entire community out there, that I know the kids are struggling still with being in their selves. And yeah, Mel, I know that you're doing some incredible work over at the center right now. What are some of the things that you maybe recently are experiencing through this pandemic, and then everybody's kind of like mental health is a little like low. And we're seeing all these visuals right now on TV, and it's really scary for some that already were struggling. So what are you guys doing to kind of help with that stuff?
Yeah, so it definitely has been a challenge for a lot of the youth here in our space because they're already experiencing homelessness on top of the police harassing them daily on the streets. And so the folks that's on the streets, we're still trying to provide them with a safe space here at the Village, this right here on McCadden. So if you do have youth that are struggling and just need a space during the daytime as well, we do provide a space for them to come. We do have support groups We do have different therapists there that if they need someone to talk to, because like you said, mental health is definitely real. And so a lot of the youth are struggling because of having to either stay indoors or just with what's going on outside with the racism, or just being judged, or just not having a place to go because of the COVID. A lot of the housing opportunities that was out there, they have actually completely stopped them from moving in and out of some of these services. And so the Covenant House, LGBT Center, the Way In, and some of those places are still accepting youth and giving them a place for them to go. And so I think that's the good thing about us, is that we are still able to provide services and have a place for them to go, because to be honest with you, if they didn't have a place like us, I don't know what would happen to some of our youth.
That's beautiful. I appreciate you sharing that with us. We're going to get into kind of the end of this, but what I don't want to miss is that I want to be able to have the listeners donate, because I think it's important that we have donations and that people are going to get involved and how they can get involved. So before we go into Q&As, I kind of want to make sure we touch this. So one of the things that LA Sparks are doing, they made these really amazing shirts, right? The authenticity shirts. You can get those at lasparks.com. They're going to be donating to each one of you guys and everything you guys are doing. So when you go and purchase, that will be the case. Also, there's a giveaway. They're going to be giving away 5 gift sets from Morphe. It's a Pride collection. So you guys out there that are interested in makeup, and my niece, she got super excited about this. I didn't even know what the heck Morphe was. But so for those out there that love makeup, that 5 set kits, they're going to be giving those away later on. And also, I'm going to let my niece and nephew take this away. I created a clothing. I have my own clothing brand, which is Dig the Kicks. They were inspired by it, and they've created their own clothing line now. And these are the t-shirts that they've created. They have the Black Lives Matter fist, which this one sold out like crazy. And then we have the equality shirt here. So you guys tell what you guys are going to do for out there.
So on our website, digthekicksbtk.com, we will have a giveaway code, Pride20, for some of our shirts.
So 50% off of these equality shirts right here. We're going to go ahead and do that. So everybody that's listening out there, 50% off the equality. These 2 amazing souls, man, I feel like it makes me get tight in my throat, because, I just, to be able to be accepted and then to understand everything that's going on, like even for me growing up, I didn't know when my sister was going to have kids, like what that was going to feel like. And I think that's important too, right? We don't know what their level of understanding. I know my sister was in a little fear of that because I love them so much. But man, when I tell you, when you're so honest and living in your truth, it doesn't matter what age, they feel the love, and that's all that ever matters to them. They love me so deeply, and I'm a good person to them. I treat them well, and that's what they see, right? They don't see the sexuality of who I am and what they just say. They call me Net. They say, Net, we just want you to be happy, and whatever that looks like. And so I've inspired them, and this is they literally wanted to make sure it had all-inclusive equality and Black Lives Matter, and that was what we launched first. And it's such a, I was like, okay, okay, let's get on it.
What's the website again?
And so it's a beautiful thing, and I'm so grateful that I have these 2 little
souls.
What's the
website again, AD?
Go ahead, David.
What's the website again? I want them to tell everybody the website again.
Yeah, go ahead.
Dig the Kicks.
Spell it out.
DIGGTHEDICKS.
KICKS DTK.com. digthekicksbtk.com. And you'll be able to purchase this with Pride 20, and you'll get the 50% off. All right, so we have a question that came up. So everybody, whoever feels free, just jump in. All right, so panelist question. How can people watching help support your organization, and where can they find more information? So David, you want to start first? We just start at the top there.
Sure. I appreciate the question. You can find more information at our website, NBJC, National Black Justice Coalition.org, and we're at NBJC on the move across digital platforms. While I'm here, I also want to shout out, there's a lot of comments Mel made about mental health. To be clear, there's a report that we worked on and some information from the Trevor Project, which is an organization that responds to mental health and provides suicide prevention for young folks. And what we know is that before COVID, young people, more than 70% reported being depressed in the last 12 months. 35% reported seriously considering suicide in the past 12 months, and 19% reported having attempted suicide in the last year. It's sad to discuss, but it's really important because Black youth generally, in addition to LGBTQ youth, we don't collect data on both of them. Again, to my points early on about how problematic this stuff is, and by design, we know that their mental health is compromised, and that was before COVID. And so if you layer on top of that the economic crisis that they're now experiencing as a result of their families' constraints, all of the stuff going on in the world, more of them are asking for help. And so I want everybody to know about the Trevor Project. They have a hotline and a chat line that you can reach out to if you need help. And there's also information and the data for the adults on our website at mbjc.org. So you can understand not only what the signs are to look for, but how to hold space and have conversations with young people in the language that they speak.
Thank you, David. Anthony?
Yes, you can find us at Covenant House. That's how you can support us. We have a donate now button. Also, we have a wish list, an Amazon wish list, especially during these times. About over 50% of our young people lost jobs since COVID. So they have a lot of downtime right now. So to keep their mental health well, we ask for snacks, activities, board games, art supplies, just to keep their mental health healthy and keep them engaged. Also, any kind of job leads. Also, if you have any, we've been getting a lot of support from grocery stores, from security guard companies. So giving our youth opportunities during this time is very important. Also, you can find us at our Instagram. It's CA House _official. It's kind of complicated. Our first one got hacked, but you can reach out there and see what we got going on. But I always say the one thing, especially now, you can't volunteer on campus, but to create awareness for the Covenant House and the LGBT Center, to let people know what we do. Supporting young people, like Mel said, when you do see somebody, let them know the resources that we have. So yeah, find us there.
Before you wrap up, how can the parents educate themselves on being supportive to their youth?
Well, one resource that we have and that we offer to the community at large is we can provide training. So we have therapists, we have case managers, we have social workers on site that engage your school systems, engage your churches, and invite us out to provide trainings to have how can you support these young people within these spaces. I think that's the best things, as you know, we do have a lot of good experts here on site that can help with that. So I think that's just the main thing you can do, is get training and get support on learning these issues. Just don't think you know how to solve it. And I think that's the issue with a lot of people. I know what to say, I know how to handle it. No, you don't. Come to these spaces and these people that can offer that support and bridge that, help parents with those issues.
Perfect.
And also,
go ahead.
Also, if you're having groups at your site, invite parents. I think a lot of times parents would like to come, but we may have to be the bigger person and pull them in. So I think it's so important, and it's up to us to continue to educate.
Educate.
All right, thank you so much. All right, this is a question for Chelsea. What advice do you give youth struggling to have the conversation with parents?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think all of these resources that you see on the screen allows you to be able to navigate those type of conversations. But I also think that it's part of having conversations from what you see, what you hear, and asking questions. It's always okay to ask questions, because you don't know what you don't know, right? But I also think that being and listening to these panels and reaching out to people like us sitting here in our truth is a way to kind of figure out, okay, if I want to ask this question, what does this mean? If I want to attack it, what does this mean? And like she said, being in part of groups to kind of ask those type of questions. But I think my wife also said one line that was great. It was like, us being here and talking about it is part of the resistance. It is part of like the understanding and offering support for people that have those type of questions. But I would just say sometimes it takes courage. It took courage for me to be able to reach out and have those different people and resources to have those conversations.
I love that. All right, real quick, Mel, you can tell us where to get the resources, reach out. I know the LA Sparks are going to do a really good job at kind of giving the details, but you can go ahead and share with us as well.
Yeah, so you can go right on our website at lalgbtcenter.org. You can donate there. We take donations every day, hygiene products, socks, clothing, because we do have a clothing closet that we issue out clothes and shoes and things like that for the youth if they do need it. We also can take waters, toothbrushes, and things like that. And then to get back to your question about the support for the youth, we also have a support group for parents and youth to come to, and it's from 10 to 18 years old, but it's open for the ages of 18 to 24 as well. So if you do have youth that's either minors or 18 to 24, we have a support group that they can attend to support them around with family and communication.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We're rounding the end of this, so I want to make sure that we can get all the questions, but I want to thank the LA Sparks. I want to thank all the panelists for being here today. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to have this conversation. I think the most common thing here is educate yourself, especially as a parent. If you have a child that is experiencing and they're learning their sexuality and what they want to be in the LGBTQ, and there's tons of resources now. What we've shared today is what we didn't have, and now we have this. And so there is no excuse. There's no excuse on why these kids are really struggling and stuff like that. So educate yourself, make sure that you're getting in the conversation, and we'll continue to do the fight. I'll have myself in this as much as I can. And I'm not going to give up on what's going on, and hopefully we can get to a place where they don't have to fight for this, right? The next generation don't have to continue this. One last question though. What happens if a youth isn't confident enough to reach out? Is there a hotline they can call? Does anybody have that available if there's somebody that's not comfortable? David, looks like you're gonna go.
I was looking to see if anybody else. I think the answer is no, because it depends on what they're not comfortable with, right? And so if it's a concern about inviting somebody in might result in them not having access to quality or comfortable housing, then it would be the housing center in Anthony. If it's about critical services that aren't being met in that regard, it might be Mel. If it's about language that you need for your parents or family or to be connected to a center of care, then it might be NBJC. I really think that it depends on what the young person needs in that moment and or is struggling with. Again, if it's around mental health, there's the Trevor line that they can reach out to, the chat function or the 1-800 number. So I think it really depends. But start with any of our organizations and we'll make sure that we connect you to the right care.
Awesome. Perfect. Yeah, the comments really help. Everyone, I think there's like a live comment section and then there's a private one that we're talking into. So appreciate everyone that's on. Appreciate all the youth that are here. Appreciate the parents that are having the conversation. I think this is an important thing to do. I look forward to doing more of this. Again, we have the LA Spark Authenticity shirts. We have the Equality shirts for 50% off. We're going to be donating as much as we can. We're going to get in the conversation. All right. Yep. There you go. He's on the website. So we want to make sure we're having the conversations. We want to make sure we're still providing resources and money. It helps a ton, right? Because we have a lot of kids out there that are struggling with housing. So any closing statements for the panelists before we go? I want to make sure, you guys get a chance. So I'll take it away, David, and then we'll just go.
I was hoping I was going to go last, though. I'm thankful for the space created. Shout out to everybody at the Sparks from the hometown kid from Inglewood. This meant a lot. And y'all, too, are brilliant and beautiful. Looking forward to supporting and seeing what y'all do in the world.
Thank you.
All right, Anthony, take it away.
I was born in Inglewood as well, so Inglewood's representing. Thank you to Sparks. Yeah. Miss Lon has been a long-time supporter of the Sparks, so that's another reason I had to bring her on. Thank you, AD, for being a wonderful host. But one thing we always say here when we get people tours is we just the basic, simple essence of what we do is provide unconditional love. And I don't know why it's so hard for people to do that. We just love on people, and we provide relentless engagement. So if we get cussed out, if we somebody wants to, cry on us, we provide that. We will engage you until we can get you to that next level. So I think if all folks do that, relentless engage on these young people, LGBT community, Black people, I think we'll be better off. But, unconditional love is what we can provide, and hopefully everybody will start doing that.
That's beautiful, Anthony. Thank you. Chelsea, what you got for us? Close us out.
I'm just happy to be. I'm happy to be part of an organization that put this all together, and you guys are beautiful. I loved every time you guys spoke. So thank you for allowing me to be in this space with you guys.
All right, Mel, what you got?
I was just going to say the same thing, kind of piggyback of what everyone says. Thank you again for having this panel. I think it's awesome. Let's keep them going, and definitely continue to love one another, continue to educate one another, continue to guide them in the right places, because I think that's what we're lacking, is just the love and the guidance on, and the support for these youth. And so continue to love on one another.
Well, on behalf of the LA Sparks, I want to thank you for reaching out to me and making me a part of this panel. And everybody on the panelists, I appreciate your guys' time and your efforts. And the common denominator is do everything with love. Love is love, and it shouldn't matter. Our sexuality shouldn't speak for ourselves. Our character should. So I look forward to more conversations like this. Thank you again, LA Sparks. Thank you for everyone that's on. Love, peace. That's all I got. Thank you, guys.